All right, good morning. Welcome back to Tanya. We are getting to the end. Matter of fact, today we're going to finish chapter 50. And originally, when the Tanya was printed for the first time, when he published the first edition of Tanya, that's where Tanya finished. Only in the later reprint, he added another two chapters, three chapters, 51 to 53. So we are making a mini final, what's called a conclusion, a siyum on Tanya, and the goal is the next 2-3 weeks to finish. Hopefully, midsummer we'll finish the Tanya, and when we finished a special learning book of Torah, you have to make a celebration. We have to get together and celebrate. There will be a very heavy test in order to participate in the celebration, an exam. All right, so let's get back. We are middle of chapter 50, and in the chapter, it talks about a uniquely higher level of love, a love that he compares to not of silver but of gold, not of a Kohen but of a Levi, a love that's not compared to not of chesed, not of kindness, but of gevura, of severity. A love that he compares to not of man but female, and not of the right side but the left side. He's basically talking about what we call a passionate love, a love that is so passionate that the soul is yearning and for Hashem in such an intense way that it expires, that it detaches itself from the body, which is a beautiful level. It's a very high spiritual level to love Hashem so much that literally you detach, your soul detach itself from the body. But we know, we talked about last week, that this is considered a sin. And we know that from the story of Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu. They had such a yearning for Hashem that they died out of the love for Hashem, and it was considered a sin because Hashem's desire, Hashem's will is that we do not detach ourselves from the body, that we actually that we remain within the body and love Hashem from that place. So the question is then, is there any benefit or is there any virtue in having such an intense love if it's considered a sin? So we're going to learn today that the desire to love Hashem in such a passionate way is very admirable, it's very special. But take that desire, take that passion and do a U-turn and bring it back and live with that desire, that love in this physical world, in your physical body, which is why Judaism is all about doing mitzvahs in the physical world, in the physical body. But it is actually special that you serve Hashem with these two, which seems to be opposite energies, but it's not a contradiction. Meaning, I love Hashem so passionately that technically it can detach. I can literally die and not want to be bound by limitations of the body, but understanding that the mission, what is Hashem asking of me, is to take the passion and bring it into reality, bring it into this physical realm. So this is where we're at on page 645, section 2, running and returning, from the bottom. The fire love described in this chapter won't actually inspire you to observe the Torah and mitzvahs. It's not going to do that. It will just make you want to leave your body and be one with Hashem. How then is this compatible with Torah observance? Fiery love won't directly inspire observance. It will prompt a rebound emotion, the returning following the running away to God. A consummate desire to live in this world in a body. It is this rebound returning that will propel you to observance, as the Tanya will now explain. Now, the way in which this intense love inspires worship through Torah mitzvahs observance is indirect. It is only through the rebound experience of returning, which takes place after the feeling of this fiery love, as stated in Sefer Yetzirah. If your heart runs, return to one. What does it mean if your heart runs, return to one? She explains this further. Tanya now works through the cycle of emotions, from a yearning to depart from the body, which is considered running, or in Hebrew we call it ratzoi, to the rebound emotion when you return to one. So the meaning of if your heart runs is the yearning of the divine soul in your right chamber of your heart, when it surges, flames, and glows exceedingly, to the point where your soul actually languishes to be free from your body, to collapse into the embrace of your divine Father, the blessed source of life, and to free yourself from the imprisonment of your sensuous physical body, so as to attach yourself to God. So to the soul, the body is an entrapment, an imprisonment. So the soul is so desired to connect to Hashem that it wants to free itself from the body. So then when you reach that state of running in order to inspire, to the rebound emotion, to return to one, so now you have to remember that when you have that passionate desire, you have to hit the return, the reverse button, and come back. How do you get inspired to return? If you're inspired to expire from the body, how do you remember that pinnacle moment not to get to that end goal, but to come back and to remain in the body? So for that, the Tanya continues. Then, when you reach that state of running, in order to inspire the rebound emotion, to return to one, so take to heart the following teaching of our sages of blessed memory. Right. So when I say take to heart, sometimes some certain teachings you have to take to mind, and certain teaching you take to heart. Typically, when you say take to heart, it means obedience. It means even if logically it doesn't make sense to you, because logically you want to expire, you're in such a passionate love that you want to expire, you want to run away from your limitations. You have to remember, it's like take to heart, remember there is a command, there is something that's larger than you, which is Hashem, who's asking to do something, even if it's opposite what you feel right now, or what's opposite what you understand right now. What is it? What is it to take to heart? And here comes the famous statement from the Mishnah, which the Mishnah says in the Ethics of Father in Pirkei Avos. I can read it in Hebrew. Ki al karchach atachai baguf hazeh lach yosef. That without your consent, you live in this body to keep it alive. So the Mishnah says, later on we're going to see that the Mishnah says a very strange thing. The Mishnah says a person should know that against your will, you are alive. Against your consent, you have been born. And against your consent, you will die. What does that mean? It's a contradiction. Against my consent, I've been born, and against my consent, I die. So the explanation is, the simple explanation is, that the neshama, the soul, right, which originates from where? From Hashem, somewhere in the spiritual heaven in Gan Eden, and then Hashem calls you and says, listen here, I need you to go on a mission and come down to this physical earth called Olam Hazeh, this physical world, in a body, and you'll be born to parents, and you'll be in a body, and you'll be limited. What does the soul say? I don't want to go. I don't want to go. What do I need to go there? I'm having a great time in Garden of Eden. That's what the Mishnah says. Al kochach, Hashem forces you. You have no choice. Hashem doesn't ask you. You got to do it. All right, so then we can think, if it's such against my neshama's desire to be trapped in the body, then why is it against the soul to die? So death should be a release. Death should be a happy, something that the soul will look forward to, because it's going back where it never wanted to leave in the first place. So we think, right? Once the soul is here, right, it enjoys a good steak and understands that there's Venice, Florida, and this is real paradise, right? It doesn't want to die anymore. It's not what it means. But what he's going to explain is that the soul originally doesn't want to come down to this world. All right, so Hashem says, too bad. I have a purpose. The whole purpose is what? That you should come, the soul should come to this physical world. Why? So you can bring my glory, you can bring Hashem's light, Hashem's presence, Hashem's light into this physical world. That's the whole purpose why he created everything. Not only the physical world, that's why he created souls. The idea is to descend. The fact that you have a yearning for me, that's great, but you got to come down and bring it into the physical body. Once the soul understands that and understands that this is what the ultimate goal is, now it does and appreciates the power of a physical action that is for Hashem, which we call a mitzvah. The power of every mitzvah that can only be done with soul and body. Now the soul doesn't want to go back. He knows, the soul understands that where is it? Where is the ultimate? It's in this physical world. That's why it goes against the soul's consent to die. But here's going to take that a bit further. Let's read it inside. It's in order to bring supernal life energy down into it from the blessed source of life, through have the Torah of life, so that there should be a home for God's oneness in the lower worlds. That should be felt palpably, as stated above, the moment if you're running, call to mind that you were never given the choice whether or not to live in this bodily life. God put you here for a reason, to carry out your sacred responsibility of observing the Torah down here on earth. You might desire to leave your body and unite with God, but God's will is for you to remain in your body and carry out the mission for which he placed you here. And this is the emotion of returning. That's the other part. When a person gets to a level where there's such passionate love that it wants to completely cleave to Hashem in a way that it wants to expire from the physical body. So you have to remember that the first place coming down here was also against your will. Your soul came down, your soul was already one with Hashem. And then Hashem placed it in the body, it was against your will. So even now that you're in a body and all of a sudden you become so spiritual that you yearn to detach yourself, say to yourself, I have to remember to always do the detour, the U-turn, to remember to remain in the body, because that's the whole purpose. And initially when I was born, it also was going against my will, my desire. But however, what's the most bottom line? I have to remember, what is Hashem's will? And if I understand that, or at least I feel this way in my heart, I take it to heart, now I can use this emotion or this idea to return, which he calls returning. That's the running and returning. As the Zohar continues, the Zohar says on top 647, as Zohar says, similarly stated, that there be one in the one. Meaning, what does it mean that there be one in the one? Meaning that God's hidden oneness should be apparent as oneness in the manifest world through Torah activity down in this world. Which means basically that the whole idea is that the oneness, right? That Hashem who is one, should be revealed or manifest in this world where his oneness is concealed, so it can come back to the one. In other words, the world was created with Hashem's oneness, but that oneness is concealed. When my soul comes down to this world, what's the job? That the one, Hashem, should be with the one, with the real oneness that is concealed. The job of the soul is to reveal that the true essence and true existence of everything in this physical world, in the concealment, is Hashem's oneness. And this is the meaning of what we say. You all know that we say that on Friday nights. We say Lecha Dodi, Lichat Kala. We welcome the Shabbos. We sing Lecha Dodi, come my beloved, and greet the bride, the Kala. So the term Kala, which means bride in Hebrew, also alludes to the languishing of the soul to leave the body. It comes from the Hebrew word kalos hanefesh. Kalos, which is the same root of kala, which is bride. In Hebrew, when the same root has different meanings, if you have one word that have different meanings within the root, all the different meaning or the translations are all interconnected. So a bride on one side is a kala, but kala can also come from the word of yearning or languishing of the soul. So our reaction to this ought to rebound into the world, thereby bringing God's presence, my beloved, down here. That's why we start Shabbos with Shabbos. What's the whole idea of Shabbos? Shabbos is really to connect the oneness with Hashem, with the oneness of the world that Hashem has placed himself. Hashem created the world in 6 days, so it's all about creation. Shabbos is the testimony, is the declaration that the world that was created, that seems to be concealed from Hashem, is truly one. That's how we demonstrate by observing Shabbos. So we bring in the one to one. So we sing it, Lecha Dodi, come my beloved one, come my beloved soul. You want to be detached. But what is Shabbos all about? Not to detach, but take this yearning and connect it to the oneness within the world. This will help us to clarify the teaching of our sages of blessed memory, which I mentioned earlier in the mission of ethics of our Father, that without your consent you'll live, or without your consent you die. And this is perplexing since there are two contradictory sentiments. So what then should your desire be? If you're saying that without your consent you live, and without your consent you die, so what should I do? Should I live or should I die? Which one should I do? So then he answers the Mishnah, first statement, without your consent you live, suggests that a peak spiritual moment, when you want to transcend bodily existence, it's not only at birth. You are in a peak spiritual moment, right? Where you transcend your body, where you transcend bodily existence. You have such a passionate love and longing and languishing to Hashem that you want to remove yourself, you want to expire. So then the Mishnah says you must come to realization that God's will is for you to worship God in the body and return. You must now live even though it is without your consent. So nevertheless, if you stay in a state of returning for too long, you might find bodily existence so enjoyable that you lose interest in worshiping God. Now that you do the return, you say, okay, I got to be in this physical world. The danger is we get too comfortable in our bodies. We get too comfortable in the physical world where we forget to be sensitive what the desire of the soul is all about. So the body becomes now a distraction, or it kind of hijacks the soul. And what does the body say? I don't want to die. So to reach the state of running, so another peak moment of running will be necessary to keep you in a state of spiritual fitness. To reach the state of running, you must follow the Mishnah second statement. You yearn to transcend bodily life, to die, so to speak, even though it is currently without your consent. In other words, let's continue. But once you reach a state of running, you will again need to shift into a mood of returning again to fulfill the divine will as above, and so on in a constant cycle. But since both emotions of running and returning are required for worship, the Mishnah mentions them both. Without your consent, you live, returning, and without your consent, you die. As explained elsewhere, a lengthy commentary on the Mishnah, without your consent, you live with the help of the blessed source of life. So, in other words, the Alter Rebbe Tanya adds a whole new level of understanding of this Mishnah. Originally, when I told you the Mishnah that there's a contradiction between against you, without your consent you live, without consent you die. We talked about the soul. The soul doesn't want to come down to this world. Hashem says, too bad, you have a mission to do. You get born. Once it's born, it appreciates the beauty of a mitzvah. It doesn't want to die. Hashem says, too bad, your mission is over. You have to die. But what Alter Rebbe is saying here is a whole new thing. This is in the picture of birth and death of a lifespan. Here the Alter Rebbe is talking that this Mishnah also applies to our daily living. Our daily living. You wake up in the morning, right? And you're super inspired. You're super inspired. So let's say you get to the level we talk here, this Ava, B'tanugim, you have such a passionate love that you are no interest anymore in the physical world, no interest in to act, no interest with your physical body. You're ready to literally expire from the intense love of Hashem. So what the Mishnah comes says, remember, you are forced to live. Against your nature, against your spiritual nature, you must live. You have to do a return, you have to do a return and U-turn, and remain in the body and bring Hashem down into the spirit world. So now that you've done the U-turn, what happens? You can get lost in this world. You can get lost in your body. Your soul can become diluted. Your soul can become confused and no longer be sensitive to the spiritual desires of the soul. So the second part of the Mishnah says, and akochach atameis, against your will you die. What does that mean here? Meaning that, remember, it is very important that you should have a yearn. You should have a yearn to detach yourself from the body. It's kind of a zigzag of going up, down, up, down, up, down, which says running and coming back, running, coming back. So it's good to have running, a desire to be connected by detaching yourself from the physical, remembering what's the mission, but don't get too comfortable down here in the physical world. Constantly have the yearn to keep going back up. And then when you go back up, you remember what the mission is. You're coming back down. And when you back down, again, don't get too comfortable. Constantly do your spiritual fitness exercise that you have a desire to be super spiritual. So that is a daily, kind of a daily cycle or a lifestyle, a lifetime, and understanding that and learning about it can give us a strength. All right, so this is finished chapter 50, and the next few chapters, as I said earlier, were not meant to be in Tanya at all in the beginning, and it kind of is a almost like a bonus chapters where the Alter Rebbe goes into some really complex ideas about Hashem's presence in this world. Being that it's a complex and it's kind of a new chapter, I'm going to elect that we're going to do this next week. I'll take any questions.
So, Rabbi, I would like to ask you a question. Is that what's teaching us how to control our feelings to God?
Yes. We learned earlier in Tanya about controlling our feelings. that comes through the mind, through das, through knowledge. That the
So it's
mind controls the heart. But we are talking controlling our feelings in terms of what the evil inclination wants to do. We have to control our desires. This chapter 50 is really talking about a very high spiritual level. It's interesting because you think that's almost like a tzaddik. Who do you know has such a desire to cleave to Hashem that they want to expire? And we're talking a mentally healthy person, not somebody who wants to commit suicide, right? We're talking about such a spiritual intensity that they want to expire from their physical being. It takes a tzaddik to feel this way. However, the Tanya was written to the Beinoni, right? Which we talked about. Tanya was written to the average man, not to a tzaddik. So the fact that he's teaching us this is that at least for certain fleeting moments, we have the ability to have such desires. Can we have such desires to be such an intense love for Hashem that we can completely, on an ongoing basis, you got to be a tzaddik. But we have the ability to have those desires, or at least I think in one of the chapters he says, sometimes it should bother the Beinoni, the average man, that he doesn't have such desires, to be have such intense love for Hashem. The fact that I feel that I'm lacking spiritual sensitivity, that I don't have this passionate love for Hashem, is also a healthy development. Because I can understand intellectually that there is such a concept. My soul is not at that level yet. It bothers me, but that allows me at least to upgrade a little bit, step by step, my spiritual being. So in terms of controlling your emotions, here they're talking about controlling the emotions of such a high level, but almost like a tzaddik, that he doesn't want to expire. Remember, control yourself, come back into a body. I mean, that's a beautiful and a very high level. And we wish that should be our problems, where meanwhile we're dealing with an evil inclination who doesn't want to do Torah, doesn't want to do mitzvahs, wants to be selfish, has an ego. So that's a very high calling. Any other questions? I think we're going to stop here. Continue next week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. So let's be ready for next week, and we'll do a 51, which is a shorter chapter. And then we have 52 and 53. So I would say 3 to 4 weeks, just when we do our summer break, we should be fine.
Thank you, Rabbi.
So then, yes, a blessed week.
Thank you, Rabbi.